A mockery at the front desk. The doors of the Galactic trade tower slid open with a low hum. The building stood like a silver mountain. Walls of glass and steel stretching into the clouds. Beings from dozens of alien species walked in and out, their robes shining with colors, their badges glowing with symbols of high rank. Among them stepped a young alien girl. Her clothes were plain, stitched by hand, faded at the edges. She had cleaned them many times, but still they looked old. Her hands shook as she held a small paper with a job listing written on it. Her eyes were full of hope, yet her steps were slow. The lobby was crowded, full of laughter and the sound of footsteps. In the center sat the front desk, polished like crystal. Behind it was a tall alien receptionist. His horns were decorated with gold, his clothes perfect. His voice was smooth, but sharp like a blade. He was known for mocking people. The girl walked forward. Her heart pounded in her chest. She stopped. In front of the desk, her voice came out small. "I am here for the interview," she said. She pushed the paper forward with trembling fingers. The receptionist looked at the paper, then at her clothes. His mouth curled into a smirk. His voice grew louder so that others in the lobby could hear. "For the interview? Dressed like that?" He laughed. His laughter echoed across the hall. Several aliens nearby turned and stared. Some whispered. Some covered their mouths to hide their own laughter. The girl felt her cheeks burn. She wanted to run, but her feet stayed still. Her hands squeezed the paper tightly. She tried to speak, but the words stuck in her throat. The receptionist leaned forward, his eyes cruel. "Did you lose your way to the charity house? This is the Galactic Trade Tower, not a market stall." His words were like poison, dripping with mockery. He waved his hand as if brushing her away. "Go home, little one. This place is not for you." The girl lowered her head, her vision blurred. The voices of laughter around her felt heavy. She remembered the nights she had spent studying scraps of old books, the hours she spent dreaming that maybe one day someone would see her worth. Now it all felt foolish. But then the sound in the lobby changed. The laughter stopped. Footsteps echoed against the marble floor, strong and steady. The receptionist froze. His smirk disappeared. Everyone turned their heads. A human had entered the hall. He walked with calm power. His suit was simple, but his presence filled the room. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and this one was not just any human. He was the boss of the tower's human division. The girl dared to lift her eyes. She saw him coming closer, his face unreadable, his eyes sharp. He stopped right behind her, looking from her to the receptionist. The receptionist straightened quickly. "Ah, sir," he stammered. "This applicant was confused. She thought she could come here like this." He pointed at the girl's clothes, his voice dripping with fake respect. The human did not reply at once. His silence was heavy, his gaze locked on the girl. She could not breathe. Her heart beat so fast it hurt. She thought he would tell her to leave. She thought he would laugh too. But then his voice cut through the air, low but strong. "Hire her." The receptionist blinked. "Sir?" The human's tone grew sharper. Each word was like a command. "Hire her right now." Gasps filled the lobby. The aliens who had laughed moments ago stood frozen. The receptionist's face turned pale. His golden horns seemed to lose their shine. He opened his mouth to argue, but one look at the human's eyes silenced him. The girl's chest tightened. She could not believe what she had heard. Her knees felt weak. She wanted to speak, to thank him, but no words came. The human turned his head slightly, looking at the receptionist again. His voice carried final authority. "If she does not have her badge in the next 10 minutes, you will be the one without a desk tomorrow." The receptionist swallowed hard. His hands moved quickly, pulling forms, activating the console. He no longer dared to look at the girl. The girl stood frozen, her hands shaking, her heart racing. She had walked in thinking she would be thrown out. Instead, In one moment, the human boss had changed everything around. Then, whispers began to spread. Who was this girl? Why did the human care? Why would he defend someone so low, so poor? No one had answers, but one thing was clear: her story had just begun. Asterisk, the human boss intervenes. The receptionist's hands shook as he pushed the forms across the glowing desk. His usual confidence was gone. His laughter from moments before now sounded like a ghost in the silent lobby. Every alien present kept glancing at the human boss, afraid to even breathe too loudly. The girl stood still, her mind spinning. She did not understand what had just happened. Why would a human boss, someone with power and wealth, choose to defend her? She looked down at her worn-out clothes, then at the console screen that now showed her name being entered into the system. The human boss did not move away. He stood there, tall and steady, watching every step. His eyes were cold, but there was something beneath them, a sharp awareness. He saw everything, not just her clothes, not just the receptionist's cruel laugh. He saw deeper, finally. The badge slid from the console with a faint beep. The receptionist picked it up with trembling fingers and handed it to her. He tried to mask his fear with a fake smile. "Welcome to the tower," he muttered. His voice lacked the poison it once carried. The human took the badge from the receptionist before the girl could touch it. He turned, placed it gently in her hands, and spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "You belong here now." The words cut like lightning through the room. They were not just words of acceptance. They were a command to all who had mocked her. No one dared to laugh now. No one dared to whisper. The girl felt her throat tighten. Tears stung her eyes. She wanted to thank him, but her voice betrayed her. She could only nod, clutching the badge like it was the most valuable treasure in the galaxy. The human turned to leave, his footsteps echoing once more across the hall. The lobby seemed smaller when he walked through it, as if every wall and every person bowed before his presence. But just before reaching the lift, he stopped. His voice rang out without looking back. "Respect is earned through more than appearance. You all would do well to remember that." The receptionist lowered his head, ashamed but angry. His pride was shattered, yet a fire of resentment burned in his chest. He thought to himself, "This girl will not last. Humans may protect her for a moment, but she will fail on her own." The lift doors closed behind the human boss, and the room exhaled a breath of silence. That night, in a small corner room assigned to her, the girl sat on the edge of her new desk, staring at the badge. Her hands traced the etched letters again and again. She had survived humiliation, but she also felt the weight of new eyes watching her. Some would wait for her to succeed, but most were waiting for her to fail. She worked late. Long after others left, her fingers moved through the training console, absorbing every file, every instruction. Her determination burned brighter with every page she read. What she did not know was that the human boss had returned after midnight. He walked quietly through the empty halls. His eyes caught the faint glow of her console. He stopped outside her door, watching silently as she leaned over the screen, her lips moving as she repeated the codes to herself. For a moment, his hard face softened. He saw not just a poor girl in old clothes, but someone who carried a hidden fire. He thought of the reports he had read about the discarded caste she belonged to. Entire families cast aside by alien societies as worthless. Yet here she was, refusing to give up. He did not enter. He simply watched, and turned and left without a word. But in his mind, he knew his command to hire her was not just an act of kindness. It was an investment, a test, and he was curious to see what she would become. The next morning, whispers returned. Her new co-workers looked at her with cold eyes. Some whispered that she was a pet project of the human. Some joked that she had no skills and would be gone within a week. But the girl remembered the way the human boss's voice cut through the air. She remembered the words, "You belong here now," and she decided that no matter what happened, she would prove him right. Still, shadows grew around her. The receptionist who once mocked her now plotted in silence. His pride demanded revenge. He would find a way to make her stumble, to make the human regret his decision. And in the background, the human boss kept watching, not from kindness, but from something else. He had seen many beings rise and fall in this tower, but something about her felt different, something that could change more than just her own life. The story of one girl had already begun to ripple across the tower, but soon it would reach far beyond these walls. Asterisk. The girl's first day, the morning sun hit the silver walls of the Galactic Trade Tower, turning them into fire. The city below buzzed with speeders and glowing lights. Inside the tower, the lobby filled again with voices and footsteps. But this time, the girl walked through the doors not as a visitor, but as an employee. She wore the same plain clothes, cleaned carefully in the night. A new badge hung on her chest, shining faintly. Some aliens in the lobby turned their heads when they saw her. Some whispered, some smirked, but no one laughed loudly now, not after the human boss's command. Still, their eyes carried judgment. The receptionist, who once mocked her, gave her a thin smile full of venom. He spoke softly so others wouldn't hear. "Let's see how long you last." His words were like ice. The girl said nothing. She only gripped her badge tighter and walked past him. Her desk was small, in the far corner of the work floor. The screens were old, the chair scratched. It was the kind of desk no one wanted. A place where failures were placed, yet to her, it felt like a throne. She sat down, placed her hands on the console, and whispered to herself, "I will not waste this chance." The day began with tasks, numbers, data, endless streams of alien codes. The other workers moved quickly, their hands dancing over their screens. She tried to keep up. Her fingers stumbled. Her eyes burned from reading too fast. Whispers rose around her. "She doesn't know what she's doing." One alien muttered, "She'll be gone in a week." Another replied, "Only reason she's here is because the human ordered it." Someone sneered. The girl heard every word. Each one stabbed her like a blade. Still, she kept her eyes on the screen. She made mistakes, but she corrected them. She stayed silent. Hours passed. The work floor slowly emptied as the shift ended. Lights dimmed, screens powered down, chairs scraped back. Soon only a few remained. Then none. The floor grew quiet, but her screen was still glowing. Her fingers still typing, her face pale with exhaustion. She had been given only simple tasks, but she was not satisfied. She opened training files, hidden manuals stored deep inside the system. She read them again and again. Her lips moved silently. As she repeated the codes, her body was tired, but her spirit refused to rest. She knew that tomorrow, the whispers would grow louder. The receptionist would look for a chance to humiliate her. If she did not prepare, she would fail, and failing was not an option. Late into the night, footsteps echoed across the floor. She froze, thinking she was alone. Slowly she lifted her head. Her heart raced. The human boss stood at the edge of the work floor. He did not speak at first. His eyes studied her in silence. She looked like a small flame fighting against a storm, her hands trembling but still working, her face tired but her eyes burning with determination. Finally, he spoke, his voice deep and calm. "Why are you still here?" The girl swallowed. Her throat dry, she forced the words out, "Because this job is my only chance." The human boss stepped closer, his eyes never leaving hers. For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then his expression softened. "Just slightly. And what will you do when they try to take it from you?" Her hands clenched into fists. Her voice was small but steady. "I will not let them." The human gave a slow nod. A faint smile touched his lips. It was not kindness, but recognition. He had seen hundreds of workers, thousands of applicants. Yet this one carried something rare, a spark that could not be crushed. Without another word, he turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the distance. The girl sat frozen for a long minute. Then she lowered her eyes to the console again. Her hands trembled less now. Her heart felt stronger. She whispered to herself, "I belong here." But as the night deepened, the receptionist watched from a shadowed balcony above. His eyes narrowed, his pride burned. The human's protection had saved her once, but he would not allow her to rise. Higher, he whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, I will see her fall." The girl did not know it yet, but the real test was about to begin. And this time, not even the human boss could shield her from what was coming. Asterisk hidden talents revealed. The next day began like any other. The work floor buzzed with sound screens. Flashing, alien voices overlapping. The endless hum of machines filling the air. The girl sat quietly at her corner desk, her badge glowing faintly on her chest. She kept her eyes down, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the glances, but deep inside, tension was building. At midday, alarms ripped through the building. The steady hum of the tower broke into a sharp wail. Red lights flashed across the walls. Consoles flickered and died. Codes crashed on every screen. Workers shouted in panic. Some jumped from their chairs. Others scrambled, pressing buttons. That did nothing. The receptionist at the front desk paled. His voice cracked as he called out, "System breach." "Shut it down before the inspectors arrive." His fingers flew across his console, but nothing worked. The Galactic Trade Tower's Core System 1, of the most advanced in the city, was failing. In less than an hour, an important alien delegation was scheduled to arrive for review. If the system collapsed, the company's reputation would be destroyed, the boss's authority would be questioned, and every worker would face punishment. The girl sat frozen for a heartbeat, her hands trembling above her console. She could hear the panic around her. She could see the fear in the eyes of her coworkers. Some ran to the emergency exits, others simply froze. Then she remembered the nights she had stayed late, poring over human manuals, learning codes written in a language most aliens dismissed as too primitive. Her mind sharpened, her breathing steadied. She whispered to herself, "I know." Slowly she rose to her feet. Her small voice cut through the chaos. "The breach is in the secondary relay." No one listened. An alien technician shouted, "Stay out of the way." "You don't know what you're talking about." She ignored him. Her hands moved fast, pulling up a hidden override console. It flickered alive under her touch. She typed sequences no one else recognized. Human codes, old and strange. She had memorized them from discarded scraps. The receptionist turned, his eyes wide. "What are you doing?" "Stop." He barked. His fear sharpened his voice. But she didn't stop. Her fingers danced across the keys. The console screamed as lines of corrupted code raced down the screen. She spotted the weakness, inserted the old human sequence, and forced the system to reroute itself. For a long second, everything froze. The alarms wailed louder. The lights flickered dangerously. The room held its breath. Then silence. The alarms cut off. The red lights faded. The consoles blinked alive. Again, every worker stared at their screens in disbelief as the system stabilized. Data flowed normally. The breach was gone. The girl stood trembling, her chest heaving. Sweat dripping from her forehead, she lowered her hands from the console slowly. Afraid she might collapse, for a moment, the entire floor was silent. Then whispers erupted like a storm. How did she do that? That was impossible. She saved the core. The receptionist's face twisted in rage and fear. He opened his mouth, desperate to spin the story. She must have caused it. Yes, she sabotaged the system so she could pretend to fix it. Some gasped, some looked uncertain. The receptionist's voice grew louder. She is nothing but a fraud. protected by the human boss. We all saw her touching forbidden codes. But then, footsteps echoed once again across the work floor. Calm, steady, undeniable, the human boss entered the room. His sharp eyes scanned the chaos and landed on the girl standing near the console. No one spoke. The receptionist bowed quickly. "Sir, this girl, she might have—" The human raised a hand, and silence fell. He walked slowly to the console, his eyes on the recovered system. His hand brushed the keys where she had typed. He understood the sequence instantly. Old human code, efficient and exact. Finally, he looked at the girl. His voice was low but carried power. "Who taught you this?" Her voice trembled, but she answered honestly, "No one. I found scraps of manuals, old books. I studied them." Alone, the human's eyes narrowed, but not in anger. He saw truth in her trembling words. He saw the spark he had guessed was there, a fire that no humiliation, no cruelty could crush. He turned slowly to the others, his voice sharp. "She saved every one of you. Without her, the tower would have collapsed today. Remember that before you dare mock her again." Gasps spread. Some bowed their heads. Some could not meet her eyes. The receptionist clenched his fist so tightly, his nails dug into his palms. His pride shattered again. The human boss stepped closer to her, his eyes softer now. "You carry knowledge even my senior staff don't understand." His voice dropped to a whisper only she could hear. "Do not waste it." She nodded, unable to speak, her chest heavy with a strange mix of fear and pride. For the first time in her life, someone of power had not only defended her, but trusted her. And outside the glass walls of the tower, the city lights burned. The delegation would arrive soon, and they would hear the system had nearly collapsed, but they would also hear the name of the one who saved it. The girl had entered the tower as no one now. She had become someone impossible to ignore, but she did not know that her victory today had also painted a target on her back. The receptionist's hate had deepened, and whispers of her skills would spread beyond the tower, reaching ears she never wished to hear her name. Her battle was only beginning. The truth about her past, the day after the crisis. The girl's name spread across the tower. Workers who once laughed now stared in silence when she passed. Some lowered their eyes, some whispered, but none dared to mock her openly, not after. She had saved them all. Still, unease hung in the air. Many wondered how she had done it. The codes she used were old, strange, forbidden to most aliens. The receptionist whispered poison into their ears. "She is dangerous. She used human codes. How could she know them unless she hides something?" By midday, the summons came. A message blinked on her console, short and sharp. "Boss's office now?" Her hands shook as she stood. The walk to the top floor felt endless. Her footsteps echoed against the marble. At the end of the long hall, the human boss's door loomed like a gate. It slid open. His office was wide, with glass walls showing the city far below. He stood by the window, hands behind his back. His reflection glowed against the glass. He did not turn when she entered. His voice was calm, but heavy. "Sit," she obeyed, her heart racing. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then he finally turned, his eyes sharp. "Yesterday, you saved the tower. You used codes no one else here understands. Tell me where. Did you learn them?" Her throat went dry. Her fingers clenched the arms of her chair. She thought of lying, of saying she found them in training manuals. But his eyes pinned her like a blade. He would know the truth, so she whispered, "I was born into a caste that was forgotten." The human said nothing. His eyes narrowed slightly. She took a shaky breath and continued, "My people called us broken, unworthy. We were cast aside. We lived in the alleys. In the dark places of the city, we were not allowed in. Schools, not allowed jobs, not allowed dignity. I was nothing." Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to go on. "I searched trash heaps, markets, anywhere I could, and once I found pieces of old human manuals, pages torn, words faded. But I studied them every night. I did not understand at first, but slowly I began to see human codes. Human designs. They made sense to me. Her hands trembled. Her eyes lowered. That is my truth. I am not from the noble castes, not educated. I am only a shadow who learned from scraps. For a long time, silence filled the office, the city. Outside buzzed, but inside the room, time froze. Finally, the human boss stepped closer, his voice low but cutting. Do you know what most of this tower thinks of your kind? She nodded slowly, her voice small. They think we are worthless. His eyes burned. And yet, yesterday, every one of them was saved by someone they call worthless. Her head snapped up. Shock filled her eyes. His tone grew harder. You carry more strength than they will ever admit. Do not hide it. Do not let them bury you. Her chest tightened. For the first time, she felt a strange warmth rise inside her. Someone believed her life was worth more than shadows. But the moment was shattered when the office door opened. The receptionist stormed in, his face pale but furious. He bowed quickly, pretending respect. Sir, forgive me, but this girl is a danger. She used Forbidden's codes. You cannot trust. Her, the human boss's eyes cut through him. Forbidden's? Or simply human? The receptionist faltered, sweat forming at his brow. The human stepped forward, his voice cold. You mock her for her past, but tell me, when the system collapsed, where were you? You had the authority, the training, the status, yet you failed. She did not. The receptionist's mouth opened, but no words came. His pride was crushed under the weight of the human's words. The human turned back to the girl, his voice final. This tower has two kinds of workers, those who follow their titles, and those who create results. Yesterday, you proved which one you are. The receptionist's fists clenched, his teeth ground together. He bowed stiffly, but his eyes burned. With hate in his heart, a vow was made. He would destroy her no matter what it cost. The girl sat in silence, her chest heavy, but inside something had shifted. She no longer felt only fear. She felt power, fragile but real. For the first time, her story had been spoken aloud, and instead of shame, she saw respect in human eyes. As she left the office, the whispers in the tower grew louder. Some called her dangerous, some called her brilliant, but all knew one thing: she was no longer invisible. And beyond the tower's walls, far in the city's underbelly, word of her skill began to spread. Whispers carried her name into places darker than she could imagine. Places where power-hungry eyes listened. Places where her survival would soon be tested in ways she could not yet understand. Her past had been revealed, but her future was about to become far more dangerous. Asterisk the turning point. The day of the inspection came. The Galactic Trade Tower buzzed with nervous energy. The alien delegation was arriving from the High Council. Their judgment could make or break the tower's future. If they found weakness, contracts would be cut, trade lost, reputations shattered. The work floor was polished until it gleamed. Workers moved quickly, hiding their fear behind forced smiles. The receptionist stood tall at the front desk, his horns shining, his eyes sharp. He looked calm on the outside, but inside he seethed with burning hatred. He had not forgotten the humiliation from the human boss, nor the shame of being compared to the girl. And today he had a plan. The girl sat quietly at her console, her badge catching the morning light. She knew the delegation would arrive soon. She also knew the receptionist had been watching her closely, whispering to others, planting seeds of doubt. Still, she worked silently, refusing to show fear. The doors to the tower opened with a hiss. The alien delegation stepped in, tall figures draped in flowing robes, their faces hidden behind shining masks of authority. Their voices were low, formal, powerful. The workers bowed deeply. The air grew heavy with tension. The human boss appeared from the upper floor. His presence steady, his eyes sharp. He greeted the delegation with calm respect, guiding them toward the central hall. The workers followed behind. The inspection began. Screens were lit, data displayed, machines activated. Every detail was examined. The delegation walked slowly. They're masked, eyes missing nothing. For a while, everything went smoothly, until the lights flickered, screens froze. A sharp alarm rang across the hall. The workers gasped. Panic spread. The delegation turned their heads sharply. The system was failing again, but this time in front of the most powerful council in the sector. The receptionist's lips curled into a hidden smile. He stepped forward quickly, raising his voice so all could hear. "Sir, it must be her." He pointed at the girl. His words cut like poison. She meddled with forbidden codes before. She is the one corrupting the system. Gasps echoed. The workers turned their eyes to her. Some nodded in fear, believing his lies. The delegations. Masks turned toward the human boss, waiting to see if he would defend her. The girl's heart raced. She wanted to speak, to deny, but her throat tightened. This was the trap. The receptionist had timed it perfectly. Now she stood at the edge of destruction. But then, something inside her refused to stay silent. She stepped forward, her small voice shaking but clear. "No, it is not me. It is the same weakness as before. The relay is overloaded. If you give me access, I can stop it." The receptionist barked. "She lies. If you trust her again, you risk everything." The delegation's eyes turned cold. The human boss raised a hand for silence, his voice calm, but filled with iron. "You have one chance. Prove it." The girl's breath caught. Her hands moved. Fast, she dropped to the console, fingers flying across the keys. The alarm screamed louder. The system began to spiral. Workers shouted. Delegates whispered. The receptionist smirked, waiting for her to fail. Her eyes burned. Her fingers blurred. She dove deeper into the code, her mind racing. She saw the corruption spreading like fire. She remembered the old human manuals, the strange codes written in faded ink. She called them back into her memory, and then she saw it. A hidden weakness, planted like a seed. It was sabotage. Someone had corrupted the system deliberately. Her hands moved fast, inserting the human sequence, bypassing the poisoned lines for a moment. The console shook with resistance, and it bent, and it broke. The alarms cut off, the screens lit up. The system purged the sabotage. Every number returned to normal. The hall fell silent. The workers stared in disbelief. The delegation stood. Still, their masked faces unreadable. Finally, one of them spoke, their voice echoing through the hall. "This girl saved your tower twice, and you accused her of failure?" The words struck like thunder. The receptionist paled. His body shook. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The human boss stepped forward, his voice sharp. "She is not a failure. She is my best worker. You will respect her, or you will." "Leave this place." Gasps spread. The delegation nodded slowly, their voices calm but heavy. Perhaps it is true. Humans see what others cannot. The girl stood trembling, her chest heaving. Her name was no longer a whisper in the shadows. It was spoken in the hall of power. The receptionist lowered his head, his pride broken. His plan had failed, but in his heart, his hatred burned hotter than ever. He swore silently, "If I cannot ruin her in the tower, I will destroy her outside of it." The girl did not know it yet, but her battle had just grown larger. The tower was no longer her only stage. The galaxy itself had begun to take notice, and from that moment on, her life would never again belong only to her. Asterisk. Respect earned the next morning. The Galactic trade tower was quieter than usual. Workers moved carefully, their voices low. The memory of the inspection still hung in the air like smoke after fire. The girl, once invisible, once mocked for her, Clothes now walked through the same lobby where she had been humiliated. This time, no one laughed, no one dared to whisper. Some nodded in respect, others stepped aside as she passed. The badge on her chest gleamed brighter than ever. Her steps were steady, but her heart pounded. She still could not believe what had happened, yet she knew it was real. At the front desk, the receptionist stood stiff and silent. His once perfect smirk was gone. His hands gripped the counter. So tightly his knuckles turned white. When their eyes met, he quickly looked away. Shame burning on his face, the girl paused. She remembered his laughter, his cruel words, the way he tried to destroy her. For a moment, she wanted to speak, to remind him of what he had done, but instead, she simply walked past, silent. Her silence was heavier than any insult. On the upper floor, the human boss stood by his office window. Watching the scene unfold below, his expression was unreadable. But deep inside, there was pride. He had seen her stand when no one else would. He had seen her rise from nothing. And now, the entire tower was forced to see it too. Later that day, a gathering was called in the central hall. The delegation had left, but their words still echoed through the tower. The human boss stood before the workers, his voice strong. Yesterday, this tower faced collapse not once, but twice, and both times you were saved by the one person you least expected. He gestured toward the girl. All eyes turned to her. Her chest tightened. She wanted to hide, but she stood firm. She was mocked for her clothes, the human continued. She was dismissed because of her past, but she proved something greater than all of you: skill, courage, and determination. From this day forward, she is no longer the girl at the corner desk. She is the standard by which I will judge the rest of you. Gasps spread across the hall. The receptionist's face drained of color, his pride crushed further than ever. The girl's knees trembled, but her head lifted higher. She felt the weight of every eye, but also the warmth of something. She had never known respect. After the gathering, she returned to her desk. This time, no one dared to whisper against her. A few even greeted her softly. Their words were awkward, but they carried something new: recognition. That evening, as the halls emptied, she lingered, staring out at the city through the tall glass windows. For the first time, she allowed herself to breathe freely, to believe that maybe she had found a place where she truly belonged. But deep inside, she knew her journey was not over. She remembered the delegation's words. Perhaps it is true. Humans see what others cannot. The galaxy was beginning to take notice. Her victory in the tower was only the beginning. Far below, in the shadows of the city, whispers spread through the underworld. Powerful figures spoke her name, some with curiosity, some with envy, and some with dangerous intent. The receptionist's failure had stirred something darker. He had allies outside these walls, beings who thrived on hatred and ambition, and they had already begun to ask questions. The human boss, standing once more by his window, knew this. His eyes followed her from a distance. He had seen the spark of greatness in her, but also the storm it would attract. He whispered to himself, "You are not ready for what's coming, but you will be." The girl walked out of the tower that night, her plain clothes still faded, but her badge glowing in the dark. The same streets that once ignored her now seemed different. For the first time, she felt the weight of her steps, as if each one carried meaning, and though the tower now respected her, the galaxy beyond was stirring, watching and waiting. She had come seeking a job. She had been mocked, laughed at, nearly destroyed. But now, she walked as someone no longer invisible, no longer powerless. Her journey was far from over. It was only the beginning, because respect had been earned, and once earned, it could never be taken away. Asterisk.